We're taking a look at the front yard farm today. My porch is bright. The sun is like directly behind me, so please pardon my squinting. The sun shines directly on my porch at this time of day. It's about almost 7 o'clock in the evening, I think. And it's just now getting to like 88 degrees. So I was trying to wait until it was below 90 before coming out today to take you guys around the front yard farm and see everything that has transpired over the last several months. I haven't done a garden tour out here since February, I believe. So we missed March, April, and May, and here we are at the end of June. And I really wanted to get some footage of what the front yard farm was looking like before we started resetting it for the fall season. So I do typically grow a full fall garden. We have such a long growing season here. We're in zone 8A in southeastern New Mexico in the high desert. So we have a really long growing season. So we're about to reset most of our front yard, and we've already started a good portion of our backyard as well, but we have most of our summer crops growing in our backyard, and so we had most of our spring crops growing in the front yard, and it is time to reset. I think during the last garden tour, stuff was just starting to come up, so I've kind of recapped some of the things that have that we've missed documenting over this spring season. We had some sweet peas. I didn't get them sown quite in a timely manner. This past year, I usually like to start them in August and let them overwinter, and I didn't get to do that this past year, so we didn't have a whole lot of sweet peas, but we had some. We had tons and tons of daffodils, and so that was amazing. I was able to fulfill a 6-week spring flower CSA, so my first year doing a CSA, and I think it went really well. It was really enjoyable to have like a steady stream of bouquets that I was putting out once every 2 weeks for my CSA patrons. So thank you for all of those members of my community who subscribed to our spring flower CSA. It was a great experience for me, and I'm looking forward to doing it again next year. And then hopefully next year we'll be able to do either a summer or a fall flower CSA as well. But I'm still kind of getting my bearings as far as making sure my summer and fall flower successions are up to par to actually fulfill weekly flower orders. But yeah, so we had daffodils, we had sweet peas, and that's most of what we had up here. We have a couple successions of sunflowers going right now, and you'll see those here shortly. But we're gonna get most of our fall crops in. We're gonna continue doing sunflowers. I just put some zinnias. I just put some summer squash, but why stand here and keep talking about it when I can just show you? So let's take a tour. Here's what the front yard farm is looking like. I'm actually really eager to go and compare it to February's garden tour. So you can see there's several things that are kind of brown and crispy and finished for the season. That stuff is going to come out within the next 2 weeks. There is a hummingbird visiting the hollyhocks, but the hollyhocks are like done, very done, and I've been harvesting seeds from them. And so hopefully whenever I come back in the fall, things will be looking a little bit more lush and abundant and green, because everything will have been turned over to the fall garden, and will just be growing well once the cooler temperatures set in. But this is the full overview. So we grew a lot of daffodils up here, and you can see all of the spent foliage, and then there's some weeds coming up. But we'll go ahead and jump on down to the lower level and take a look at each bed. All right, so we're gonna start here, and we call these our in-ground brick beds, and we just number them 1 to 4. We have, no, I'm sorry, 1 to 4. We have 4 of these. These are Shasta daisies here. We were able to cut from them towards the end of spring and use them in flower arrangements, so that was great. And now what we need to do is just come through and deadhead all of these. We're still going to leave a good portion of the foliage because these are perennials, so they help, leaving the foliage helps them regenerate next year because they're still photosynthesizing converting the nutrients or the light of the sun into nutrients. So then they will bloom for me again year after year. And this is the best year that they've ever done being up here in the front yard. I want to say they've been up here for 3 years. I think this is year 3 that I've had these up here. And originally we started them in the upper flower bed over there, and they struggled because that bed dries out really fast. So then the following year I moved them here. I didn't get any flowers. And then this second year being in this area, they bloomed, and they bloomed prolifically. So yeah, I think these are going to be their home for a little while, probably until they start acting like they're getting choked out being in the confines of this brick bed. And then we had daffodils here at the edge, but we got them in really late, so we didn't really get many blooms from them. We have some volunteer hollyhocks that are done for the season. You can see the seed pods are dried out on them, so I've been harvesting them this past week. And then we have some volunteer sunflowers that kind of just popped up here in the pathways. And then over here are hollyhocks that we've had in this bed since we first started these front yard garden beds. So I want to say it's been maybe like 3 years that they've been in this particular area. You can see how tall they are, but they're very acclimated, so they're doing great. And we've gotten a lot of seed from them. We're gonna share some of the seed with our community this year and put some of the flowers at some of our community gardens. And so you can see these volunteer sunflowers. I decided to just let them go, and they could help kind of like cast some shade for these tomatoes that we have. On this side of the cattle panel trellis, where you can see all this white shredded paper, we had daffodils. And then once they finish, we just let the foliage, and I have not replanted that. I might do a succession of summer squash there. I'm not sure, but in the meantime, I've just mulched it heavily. And then my attempt at sweet peas this year, I direct seeded them instead of doing transplants, which has been the most successful thing that I've done. So this year I'm actually going to go back to transplants and stay on a seeding schedule, because I really do enjoy having sweet peas available for cut flowers in the spring. Okay, and then this is the opposite side. Another volunteer sunflower. Look at how tall this one has gotten. And then we have more volunteer sunflowers in this area. And I'm just leaving them, like I said. I was a little bit nervous because I had recently learned about what's known as the allelopathic properties of sunflowers, but so far they haven't really been seeming to affect much of what I have up here. I'm not really sure though. If anything really affects the plants that I have in my front yard, it's the heat that radiates off of the street. So here at the base of this cattle panel are Barry's Crazy Cherry tomatoes, and these ones were already a little stunted when we got them in the ground. We mulched them with straw, but I do feel like we need to go through and add a layer of the shredded paper, just because this soil dries out incredibly quickly, and with the additional heat that radiates off the street, it's very much a heat microclimate up here. So I need to mulch these a little bit more heavily. And then brick bed number 3, we have more of the Barry's Crazy Cherry tomatoes, and my husband is going to trellis these today. Back to the other side, this is the trellis method that we use. We just take a piece of twine and wrap it around the base of the tomato, and then we take it up to a metal conduit that's inside of a coupler that's sitting on top of a T-post. So that's how we trellis all of our tomatoes. Some of them we will plant at the base of the cattle panel and let them vine up the cattle panel, but we typically only do that with our Romas. So I have that happening up here at the front, so I'll show you that in a little bit. But here's back to bed number 3 with the Berries Crazy Cherry. And these are coloring up. I just broke one off. So this is how they look. They're a little yellow cherry tomato with a beak at the bottom. These are one of our best sellers at our local farmers market. I couldn't really speak much to the flavor because I don't enjoy cherry tomatoes, but my children do and my husband does, and our patrons at the farmers market speak really highly of this little yellow tomato. When they're smaller like this, they're a little bit more flavorful because there's less water, so the flavor is kind of concentrated. But I do like when they're a little bit bigger and juicier, and the ones in our backyard are much bigger than this. I think it's because the soil is retaining moisture much better. It's a lot more heavily mulched back there, and there's not as much of a heat microclimate in our backyard as there is our front yard. So I'm hoping next year I can get all of our successions of Berries Crazy Cherry nice and plump, but I am satisfied with the way that these are growing this year. So we can just come around and disregard the Bermuda grass that's growing out of our wood chip mulch, and we'll take a look at bed number 4. I did want to mention that I planted peonies here, so I have 3 or 4 peonies planted up here in the front yard, and I think they'll do really well. There's one here, and there is one back there, although you can't see it very well, and then there's one there, and they did not immediately burn to a crisp like I thought that they would. So I'm pleasantly surprised and very pleased that they have put on so much growth this year being planted in their front yard, such as they are. More volunteer sunflowers. We also feed the leaves to our rabbits. They do enjoy the leaves, as long as they're not like too spiky, because some sunflower leaves can be a little bit spiky, but they like to eat them fresh. So sometimes we'll give them those as a supplement to their feed. But this side of the bed, once the sunflowers are done, they do need to be like cut out, cropped out, and this whole bed needs to be replanted. So I'm not doing a whole lot with this area right now. You can see the remnants of the sweet peas that I tried to sow here, and I was hoping to save the seed, but I let them go so long that the seed dried out and already fell from all the plants. Over here I have a succession of sunflowers, and this one is ready to be harvested. So I'm super excited. These came up really quick. Well, I transplanted these, but they've done really well in terms of thickness and length of the stem. Most of my earlier successions were very petite, and I can show you a couple that I still have in the ground. So I'm really pleased with the way that this succession is doing. And I think the issue was sunflowers are heavy feeders, and I just don't think I had enough nitrogen in my soil, especially because of the height that I was looking for with these and the thickness of the stem. They just weren't getting the nutrients nor the amount of water that they needed. And so I've been much more diligent with this succession because I want to bring some beautiful sunflowers to the next farmer's market, and I think I will get to do that from now through October. I had tried sowing some marigold transplants here. This is the only one that survived. But I had done a full row and I just didn't keep enough water on them, so I'm gonna try again. But I'm happy with the one that survived. And then this was a hollyhock that I cut down this past week. And now we come to our square raised beds. So this one I just started cleaning out this past week and I only got a little bit done. There was a sunflower crop that didn't do very well. We pulled those out. There was a snapdragon there that was definitely finished. I cut it all the way back. And over here, these are lettuces that need to come out, and then we have some more volunteer sunflowers. I don't know if I'll let them grow or not. Honestly, I probably will let them grow because they've already got some good growth on them, and since I don't have anything to put there right now, it would be good to keep some roots in the soil. These were all volunteer hollyhock. No, wait, I did sow these. I kind of just scattered these in winter of last year, or at the end of summer, so it was like fall of last year. I scattered these and then they came up beautifully this year and flowered. This one was the volunteer hollyhock, a volunteer sunflower. I did daffodils here at the edge, this edge, and I did daffodils at that edge. When I was waiting for the daffodils to come up, I sowed radish, and they served as a really nice cover crop. And then we fed them to the chickens once they were ready. I like radish. I don't dislike radish, but there was just so many I didn't really eat them. And then some of them got so woody so quick. This is what most of my sunflowers looked like through the spring. Just tiny little miniature things. They were just tiny little miniature things. So I'm really excited to have those. This is the size that I'm always looking for, like this exact size. And I'm glad to know that I can grow it like this. Probably my first 2 years growing sunflowers, I was able to grow them really well into that tall desired height. But we also had ducks, and I was often using their pool water to fertilize our flowers, and that worked tremendously. We don't have our ducks anymore, and so I'm not using fertilizer as liberally these days, although I do think my soil could benefit from it. This is glass gem corn that James seed started and then transplanted. And then this is another volunteer sunflower that is going to seed. So it's starting to make seeds. It's very pretty. I'll probably save the seeds for our chickens. On this side of the square raised bed, I just cleaned it out this past week, and I direct seeded some zinnia seeds. I'm typically wary about direct seeding because the soil dries out so quickly, and I watered this 2 or 3 times this week, and you can see how dry and dusty it's looking today. But I'm encouraged because I see some zinnia seedlings. Those are zinnia seedlings there. That is a zinnia seedling there. That is a zinnia seedling there. And then of course there's a lot of grass coming up as well, but you know, that's neither here nor there. I'm excited to know that the zinnia seedlings are germinating. So I'll probably go ahead and throw some water on this evening because we're going to work out here for a little bit. And what I'm going to do out here is pull down all these dried peas. But we'll go ahead and look at, we call these our in-ground market beds. And there are 6 of these. So we'll look at these next. I forgot, this is our 4th square raised bed, but this one is a complete work in progress, okay? That sunflower is a volunteer, very pretty, multi-headed. We have some gladiolas that I don't really know what they're doing. And then I was gonna try to plant something here in the ditch method, but I didn't really get to it. So this is full of Bermuda grass, and this bed actually has a nice deposit of clay. So it holds moisture well, but when it does dry out, it's like cement. Okay, I'm gonna give you guys a closer look at our market beds, the one that I'm sitting in front of right now. I cleaned it out just this past week, and I direct sowed some type of squash. I can't remember if I did yellow crookneck, dark green zucchini, though it would have been one of those two. So this is either yellow crookneck or dark zucchini, or dark green zucchini. I honestly don't remember, but we'll find out. I'm excited to say that the seeds are already germinating, and what would have been the wise thing to do is garden journal and actually write down the day that I started these, so that way I could calculate how many days it took for it this to germinate. But I know it was less than a week ago because it was just this past week. So to see the seeds germinated already in less than a week, that tells me 2 things. Number one, it is very hot up here because seeds like warmth to germinate, and the fact that it took less than a week is great. The soil is nice and warm. And 2, I'm doing a better job than I did last year of keeping moisture on the soil up here because seeds also need moisture to germinate. And so I direct sowed the summer squash, and then I also direct sowed pole beans, which I haven't grown pole beans in maybe like 2 to 3 years, just because from my perspective, when compared to a bush bean, they take much longer. And it's maybe, when I say much longer, maybe like 3 weeks longer, maybe like 20 to 30 days longer. So in the scheme of a long growing season, that's not that bad. But when you're used to super fast bush beans, a pole bean just seems to take so much longer. But the cool thing about pole beans is they're indeterminate. So typically you'll get more beans from pole beans than you would bush beans. Typically, but that's also going to depend on how many seeds you sow and if you're taking good enough care of the plants for them to put on multiple flourishes of flowers. So let's take a look at these in-ground market beds. These are 1 through 4, and then I have 5 and 6 right behind me. So here it is, the germinating summer squash. I think I did 2 seeds. Oh, there's a bunch of ants in there. And roly-polies. So I really hope these seedlings can fight through these little pests. But that's why I usually put multiple seeds in a hole, so if a pest does come, then there's a fighting chance. Here are my pole beans germinating, and I don't know what variety these are. It's some type of stringless pole bean. I think I did 3 seeds every 4 inches. So this is my garden journal. I might be able to put in the comments what seeds they are if I can go back and find my apron pocket. But yeah, these are looking good. That's all I have here. And then I'm thinking about when it gets down to the lower 80s, upper 70s, when fall comes around, I'm thinking about sowing carrots on the other side. So I'm gonna leave the other side empty until I'm ready to sow carrots. I might mulch it up with the shredded paper, but for now I'm not gonna put any seeds over there. Bed number 2, we have some red cherry tomatoes. And then we did a round of, I think they were dwarf gray peas. Let me switch to the other mode because I'm in cinematic mode. Okay, so that way it doesn't blur the background. We did red cherry tomatoes here, and I didn't actually think I was gonna get to grow these this year, but here they are. I had some left over from our seedling sale, so I ended up putting them in our garden. And these ones, well, they're toughing it out. That's all I have to say about that. They're toughing it out, and they're putting on fruit. I don't know if I'll save seed from these, but we shall see. Towards the end of the season, if they're putting out plumper cherry tomatoes, then I might save seed. But this is mulched with a nice thick layer of straw. Behind this is an area that needs to get cleaned up. Those are the peas that I was telling you about. I'm saving seed from these. This is what pea seed looks like. It's just dried peas, but I'm gonna save these and plant them in the fall. We have some more cherry tomatoes here that need to get trellised. Some of the ones that were here, well, they're all looking a little sad because they're a little flopped over, but we'll get them trellised before the end of the week. And then more dried peas, more Bermuda grass, and then these are Roma tomatoes, so we can take a closer look at these. So last year, all of these rows had Roma tomatoes, and they did okay. The soil was new. It was a new garden, so usually you want to give your garden 3 to 4 years for the soil to be at a decent spot, for the soil microbes to be prolific. But these Romas are simply what I had left over from my seedling sale in the spring. So I had 5 plants left over, so we put them in our garden. And this is our first blushing Roma tomato. These are mulched really heavily. I'll just reiterate, it has been challenging to keep moisture on the beds here in the front yard garden, so we have to use a lot of mulch, but it's worth it. And all the shredded paper we get free from our community, which has been amazing. And we just mulch everything really heavily in the last 2 beds because I'm almost out of space on my phone, so I need to delete some pictures and videos. So I'll make this quick. These are the last 2. And there's actually only things planted here are this dahlia, and there's a dahlia over there, and a third one starting to spring up. And then these are actually Egyptian walking onions that I just cut back last week. We didn't really harvest from these as much as we had hoped to, so I just cut them down. And then hopefully once it starts to cool down in the fall, they'll start putting greens on again. And if they don't, then they should at least start doing it again in the spring. And I think here and over there, I'm either gonna do cucumbers or snow peas or sugar snap peas. I actually thought about doing more pole beans on these cattle panels, but I'm not sure. I have a lot of pea seeds, so I've had an easier time finding seeds for peas than I have for pole beans. So once I go through my pole bean seeds, if I still have space left, it'll probably be a fall succession of snap peas. Okay, and then here's a final look at the front yard farm from this direction. So yeah, a garden is always in an ever-changing state, and we have a lot of cleanup to do right now, but hopefully things will look a little bit more fresh by the fall. So that is how the front yard farm is looking. Still plenty of time and space to grow. I'm looking forward to the fall season. The most challenging part is keeping up with the summer successions so that we can actually have a fall garden, and making sure that we keep enough water on the garden so everything can last through the summer and then be able to flourish in the fall. So that's what we're up against right now. But rain is in the forecast. Our area has a monsoon season. It's just that for the past few years, it hasn't been very monsoon-like of it. So hopefully this year we actually get a good dose of rain. We'll see what this next week holds. And then hopefully within the next week or two, I'll show you guys what the backyard is looking like. Until next time, keep learning and keep growing.